Welcome to In Pursuit of Truth. This is your host, Sir Patrick Mack. We've got a few new Q posts, and I'm going to read right through them here. There's actually nothing to read. There's just pictures here. So let's get started. 55 minutes past the hour of 9 p.m., post 1308. We have a picture of this plane, and then we have another picture of this plane as well. 55 minutes after the hour of 9 p.m., post 1309, we have a picture of this, which looks to be the Apple campus in Cupertino. And then at 29 minutes after the hour of 10 p.m., post 1310, this looks to be the Apple store in Hong Kong. And then we have another picture of here, which looks to be some crates inside maybe a truck or a small plane. Looks like probably more a truck. Okay, well, it looks like tonight we've only got a little bit to go on as far as pictures, and we're going to have to see if we can put a story together. So I'm going to show you what I have. Please keep in mind, these are just some theories. I'm still kind of waiting for more information to come. I have a feeling there's going to be more Q. It could be a future proves past kind of situation. But let's look at these pictures and see if there's any kind of things that we can kind of put together. At least maybe I can get you started on something else, and then you can let me know what you found in the comments section. But here we start off with these two pictures here, and I'm blowing them up for you over here. Here's the first one, and here's the second one. And the first thing that I noticed about these pictures is, well, it seems to be, the first thing I looked up, of course, is it seems to be a JetBlue Airbus A321. Now, I'm not exactly sure, but this was the closest thing that I could find. And if you look at the tail there, it looks sort of like that fin right there. So anyway, but I noticed that the first picture was under the plane. The second picture was further away and over the plane. Looks like the plane is still taking off. Now, it's hard to know where it's going, where it's coming from, or whatever. But when we look at the third picture, which is this right here, we can see that this is the Apple campus in Northern California. It's Cupertino. Okay. So we've got under the plane, above the plane. Could be a drone. Could be maybe an escort flight. Not really sure, but we're looking at what could be a JetBlue flight and flying near Cupertino. Now, are they flying over the Cupertino? This looks like just another picture off of whatever this phone is or wherever this camera's coming from. So it looks like maybe were they just south? Off the top of my head, and some of you guys will know better, I don't know Northern California as well as I know Southern California, but I'm going to say San Jose, Oakland, San Francisco. Those would be the nearest airports that I can think of. Now, there's Moffett Field, too, and I don't know if they still fly out of there, but that would not be a civilian flight. I can't imagine JetBlue taking off there. But those would be it. Okay, so somewhere near probably Northern California, flying over here, and we are looking at this Apple campus. And we know that. Here's a better picture of it for you. This is off of Wired.com. It's a great little picture, actually, of what seems to be a pretty beautiful campus. Okay, so JetBlue and Apple. What did JetBlue and Apple have together? Well, let me take you to JetBlue's website. Now available on select coast-to-coast flights. Tired of doing the things the card way? JetBlue is rolling out in-air mobile payments with Apple Pay, making onboard purchases even more speedy and secure. Here's what customers should know about this new in-flight experience. JetBlue is the first U.S. airline to accept Apple Pay in the sky. Customers can pay for eat-up boxes and all this food and yummy stuff. To complete the Apple Pay experience, our 3,500 in-flight crew members will be given iPad mini tablets. These iPad minis will also allow in-flight crew members to access flight data to further ensure the best possible experience for customer on board. That's handy. Apple Pay is now available on select coast-to-coast flights from New York to Los Angeles and San Francisco. Okay, so we know that Apple is wrapped up with JetBlue with this little thing. And Apple loves to get these sort of exclusive contracts with people, don't they? As a matter of fact, they got in a little trouble back in 2012, and so did JetBlue. Let me take you down here. This is off of aronberglaw.com. Let me just read you the headline. 411, JetBlue and Apple Incorporated lawsuits. Aronberg and is it Aronberg or Ehrenberg? I don't know. Ehrenberg and Green injury law firm. Let me take you down here. On October 29th, 2011 to be exact, on that day, there was a rapidly hardening Atlantic low-pressure system that was causing major problems for air travel in North America, specifically in the northeastern part of the United States. That's where JetBlue flies. JetBlue was forced to divert 6 New York-bound airplanes to Bradley International Airport in Hartford, Connecticut. Now, a number of passengers from some of those planes have filed a lawsuit against JetBlue Airways Corporation and are seeking class action status for the suit. The lawsuit has been filed by the plaintiffs on behalf of the passengers that were stranded on the tarmac at the Hartford Airport. Nobody wants to be stranded on the tarmac. This is not a case of a bunch of whiny passengers who didn't get the seat they wanted. This is a case that could borderline on corporate abuse of consumers. The stories from passengers on board the planes that day are horrifying. People were stranded in the JetBlue airplanes for up to 7.5 hours. In addition to the excruciating wait on the tarmac, the passengers had to deal with rolling blackouts, which shut off the electricity on the plane, which in turn cut their air conditioning and ventilation. In addition to the blackouts, the passengers had to deal with backed up toilets, which made the already disgusting aircraft toilets even less bearable. Furthermore, the crews ran out of water and food for the already distressed, irritated, tired, hungry, cranky, and thirsty passengers. Imagine the horror. Now the lawsuit is alleging that JetBlue was negligent in their treatment of the passengers. In addition, the lawsuit includes allegations of false imprisonment and negligent infliction of emotional distress. We will keep you current on this lawsuit. Okay. In the second lawsuit, Apple Incorporated, the world-renowned company behind the Mac, iPod, iPhone, iPad, etc., is facing a possible antitrust class action lawsuit having to do with the exclusive deal it struck with AT&T. It's those exclusive deals. The issue is that Apple allegedly entered into a secret 5-year contract with AT&T, allowing AT&T to be the sole carrier that would support the iPhone. As a stipulation of the contract, it was determined that Apple would share in AT&T's profit. However, the secret deal duped iPhone customers into being stuck with the AT&T or pay to register a new phone with the new network, thereby losing their money on their hefty iPhone investment. The lawsuit targets Apple for their unfair business practices and hopes to yield some compensation for customers who suffered financial losses as a result. Okay. So, now this first case doesn't seem related to Apple at all. The only part where it got weird was where the lawsuit includes allegations of false imprisonment. Would that mean that maybe somebody wanted to say something and maybe there was something recording in the JetBlue plane? I don't know. But the second suit has to do, again, Apple. You know, Apple loves to do that. And Apple loves to do that with their platform too. They don't like to go cross-platform. Well, let me take you back a little further, and I'm going somewhere, so hang with me, folks. From back in 2015, Apple CEO Tim Cook to inaugurate new Israeli headquarters next week. Tim Cook, the CEO of Apple Incorporated, is planning a visit to Israel next week to inaugurate Apple Israel's new headquarters in Herzliya, Globes reported Thursday. During the trip, Cook is also expected to meet with former President Shimon Peres, as well as the country's senior high-tech figures. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu paid a visit to Apple's headquarters in Cupertino, California during a 2014 trip, though there is no word if the two will meet this time. Okay, well, Benjamin Netanyahu, he was in the news this week, right? He had a little how should I say, slideshow presentation. And let's not talk about that. The building, which is 12,500 square meters and will employ 800 employees, will house Apple Israel's development center as well as the marketing and sales division. Last August, in the midst of Operation Protective Edge, Apple co-founder Steve Wozniak arrived in Israel to participate in the Edu Action Forum, an annual education conference that kicks off at the start of the school year. Okay, a couple of things I want to point out here. Number one, I see this in so much print media, and I'm sure you guys probably also see it. It always seems like the kicker line is either the last line or the next to last line in some of these short articles. Last August, in the midst of Operation Protective Edge, Apple co-founder Steve Wozniak, that's Operation Protective Edge. Do you know what that is? Let me take you to NBCnews.com. Israel launches Operation Protective Edge in Gaza Strip. Israel launched an offensive against Islamist Hamas in the Gaza Strip on Tuesday, bombing some 50 targets in a campaign meant to end Palestinian rocket fire. Steve Wozniak, they're shooting 50 targets. 9 people suffered shrapnel injuries. Military spokesman, Lieutenant Colonel Peter Lerner, said Israel was preparing for the possibility of sending ground forces into Gaza as part of the campaign, which it has dubbed Operation Protective Edge. Hamas armed wing threatened an earthquake in response to Israel's attacks. In a statement, the group denounced Israel's bombing of houses as exceeding all red lines and threatened to shoot rockets at longer distances. Lerner said Gaza militants had fired more than 80 rockets at Israel on Monday, and military officials said more than 200 rockets had been shot at Israel in the past month, an enormous increase in shootings. The surge in violence has raged since the kidnapping and killing of 3 Israeli youths last month in the occupied West Bank and a Palestinian teen last week. Okay, all I'm saying, Steve, is I know you want to get this EduAction forum going, but maybe Operation Protective Edge isn't the time to go. Okay, interesting time. So this was back in the day. This was a few years ago already, so we knew this, okay? And Netanyahu, what was he doing there? That seems strange. That seems really strange, don't you think? Okay, so, and doing it in the middle of all these rockets and everything like that, what was so important that they needed to do? Well, recently, Apple's also been in the news. And this is just of a few days ago off Bloomberg, April 26th. Apple Incorporated Chief Executive Officer Tim Cook met with President Donald Trump in the Oval Office Wednesday amid a brewing trade war between the U.S. and China. Cook entered the White House West Wing shortly before the scheduled meeting time at 1:45 p.m. White House officials later confirmed that the two had concluded their meeting and that Cook had also met with Larry Kudlow, the president's top economic advisor, and had a meeting at the offices of U.S. Trade Representative Robert Lighthizer. White House Press Secretary Sarah Huckabee Sanders said the primary focus and purpose of the meeting is to discuss trade, adding that the meeting had been planned for several weeks. The White House didn't immediately provide additional information on what Trump and Cook had discussed. Thus far, Apple doesn't appear to be seriously affected by the growing trade tensions, but as a U.S.-based technology company that produces the majority of its products in China and lists the U.S. and China as its largest and third largest markets, respectively, that impact could change at any time. While products like the iPhone and iPad are designed in the U.S., they are produced by China-based factories from the likes of Honhai Precision Industry Corporation and Pegatron Corporation. Apple generated $35 billion in revenue in the U.S. this past holiday quarter, which made it nearly $18 billion in China. China has become one of Apple's most important markets since Cook became CEO in 2011, and the company now has 41 retail stores in the region, the most outside of the U.S. The sit-down took place in the Oval Office Wednesday afternoon. The morning of the meeting, Trump tweeted that he was looking forward to it and said the two would discuss how the U.S. had been treated unfairly for many years by many countries on trade. In January 2016, about a year before becoming president, Trump said at a rally that if he became president, he would get Apple to build their damn computers and things in this country instead of other countries. Trump has also said that he's asked Cook to build manufacturing plants in the U.S. Currently, Apple manufactures some iMac and Mac Pro computers in the U.S., but those devices represent only a minuscule portion of the company's revenues. The holy grail for Trump would clearly be Apple moving some of its iPhone mass production to the U.S., something that Cook has indicated isn't feasible. Cook, however, has noted that some iPhone parts, like its glass cover, are made in the U.S. In July, Trump said that Cook had told him Apple would build 3 big plants in the U.S., but Apple hasn't confirmed such a plan. While Cook has called Trump's policies around DACA and immigration into question, his company embraced the Trump's tax plans, making an announcement in January that it would invest $350 billion in the U.S., open a 4th headquarters in the country, and give most employees one-time $2,500 stock bonuses. In an interview with ABC News in January, Cook said that the corporate tax cuts will result in job creation and a faster-growing economy. On Tuesday evening, Cook, along with Lisa Jackson, Apple's Vice President of Government and Environment Affairs, attended a White House state dinner. The Apple executives sat at the main table along the President, First Lady Melania Trump, France's President Emmanuel Macron, and his wife and Secretary of State nominee Mike Pompeo. Okay, so we have Apple and Tim Cook meeting in the Oval Office recently. What would they be talking about? It says it hasn't been discussed. They didn't really say. And they weren't going to provide any additional information. Were they just talking about, I don't know, were they just talking about trade? Maybe they were just talking about the App Store. Who knows? Donald Trump posted this earlier. Our great financial team is in China, trying to negotiate a level playing field on trade. I look forward to being with President Xi in the not too distant future. We will always have a great relationship. Okay, so he was talking about Xi, and just was recently talking about Apple's Tim Cook. Not sure what that has to do with JetBlue and Apple, but it does take us to our next picture, which are these two pictures right here where you can see my cursor. And that takes you to, let's see, right here. And I can tell you where this is, folks. I've never been there, but I walked under it a bunch of times. This is the Apple store in Hong Kong. I believe it's the it's like three letters. IFC Mall. I think it's the IFC Mall. It's a mall. But anyway, yeah, I only walked under it. But beautiful building. Anyway, so we're in Hong Kong now. Now Donald Trump is talking about Hong Kong. And Trump was just meeting with Tim Cook. And they were talking about wanting to bring some things back to, some business back to the U.S. And then we also have this picture here too. Now this is strange. Now I've blown it up for you, and I'm sorry that it's dark. It's just the way it is. I'll tell you what I see. These are called, Chep pallets. They're really heavy. They're for things that are really, really heavy. Okay. Now the packaging, I'm not exactly quite sure what it would be, but the other thing that I see here too is that I see condensation, and you see the grooves here, which leads me to think that whatever they were transporting was probably needing to be cooled. As a matter of fact, you can even see the water there, probably from some of the condensation. So whatever it was heavy, needed to be cooled. And we have this picture here next to the Hong Kong Mall. Not really sure what's going on there. What's going on? Well, how would you get, let me see here. So we've got Apple that's wrapped up with this payment system on this plane. And they got in a lawsuit regarding this sort of exclusive deal with AT&T. And they've been all over. They've been really, really working hard on China. And how would you move things? Are those phones in that picture? Is that what this is? Are those phones? What needs to be cooled? I would think phones need to get cool, right? You can't get phones too hot. Let me take you over here to Engadget.com. The logistics behind transporting millions of iPhones from China to stores worldwide. And I'm just going to read you this highlighted part here, the bold part. The process starts in China, where pallets of iPhones are moved from factories in unmarked containers accompanied by a security detail. The containers are then loaded onto trucks and shipped via pre-bought air freight space, including on old Russian military transports. The journey ends in stores, where the world's biggest technology company makes constant adjustments based on demand, said people who have worked on Apple's logistics and asked not to be identified because the process is secret. Okay, so is that what's on there? Are those phones? Servers? I think it seems too small to be servers. Could it just be phones? Not really sure, but either way, looks like they may or may not have had to keep it cool. But there are grooves in there, which the condensation there would lead me to think that there were. Well, let me just talk about something here. Interestingly enough, about last year, August of last year, this is off of Fortune.com. A local Chinese government will oversee Apple's new iCloud data center. China's Guizhou province, where Apple has set up its first data center in the country, plans to create a working committee chaired by Communist Party members to oversee the U.S.'s iCloud facility. China has started to police the internet more closely and introduced a new cybersecurity law on June 1st that imposes tougher controls over data than in Europe and the United States, including mandating that companies will store all data within China and pass security reviews. The Guizhou government said on its website that the Apple iCloud Working Committee would be made up of around 10 members, such as Guizhou's Executive Vice Governor Qin Rupei, Deputy Secretary General Ma Yingyu, and other officials. The provincial government has decided to form a development and coordination working committee to quicken the settings up of Apple's iCloud project, it said in a Chinese language statement. An Apple spokesman did not immediately respond to a request for comment. In July, Apple said it had first set up its first data center in China, in the southern province of Guizhou, in partnership with a local internet services company to comply with tougher cybersecurity laws. The data center forms part of Apple's planned $1 billion investment in the province. China is a key market for Apple, though the U.S. tech group has come under pressure from Chinese regulators in recent months to comply with strict local data laws and assisting in curtailing access to overseas content. In late July, Apple said it was removing virtual private network services from its App Store in China, a move that drew criticism from VPN service providers who accused the U.S. company of bowing to pressure from Chinese cyber regulators. Okay, so essentially what I get from this here is if they want to move into China, which they really, really do, folks, and I lived in China briefly and I've been there a few times, the phones there are I don't know how to explain it. Full of malware. They're terrible. They're terrible. They love technology. They have fun phones. They have a lot of fun gadgets and stuff like that. But they're full of all this crazy malware and things like Facebook, YouTube. You don't even. I think they use Youku there. They don't. I don't know. And you can use a VPN, but everything's really, really slow, even in really nice parts of town. But they love Apple. And they love their products. As a matter of fact, I bought an Apple laptop, I think, one time in Beijing. Anyway, different story. So, point is, though, is it looks to me like Apple's giving the keys over to this iCloud thing, which is, again, all this data we're talking about. Remember, mountains upon mountains of data. Interesting stuff. Well, interestingly enough, this happened just recently. This is off the NewYorkTimes.com. Apple now says it will buy back $100 billion in stock. This is out of San Francisco. Since Apple said in January that it would bring back most of the $252 billion it held abroad under the new tax law, investors have wondered what the company would do with the enormous cash pile. On Tuesday, those investors learned that they are in line for a big chunk of the money. Apple said it would buy back an additional $100 billion in stock, by far the largest increase in its already historic record of returning capital to investors. The company didn't provide a timeline for the repurchases. Apple also increased its dividend by 16% to 73 cents a share, pushing past ExxonMobil to become the largest dividend payer, according to S&P Dow Jones Indices. Apple stock buyback fits into a broader trend of companies using the financial windfall from President Trump's tax cut to reward shareholders. Share buybacks, which are reaching record levels, are great for investors, including executives and employees, because they reliably lift stock prices by limiting the supply of shares for sale. But critics say the actions can take money away from potential investments in hiring or research and development, and can increase economic inequality because they typically benefit wealthier people. Okay, I don't want to go way into this this article itself, but you can see what's going on now. Now, Trump has met with Tim Cook, and all of a sudden, they're buying back all these shares. Now, that's a move that happens before, and sometimes they do that so that they can kind of they sometimes, like it says right here, repurchasing their own stock to increase the share price, meaning they're trying to manipulate it by taking some of it away so that it'll hopefully have more value. And of course, the critics that don't want that to happen say that money should go on R&D, and of course will increase economic inequality. But of course, maybe this is part of Trump's deals with some of these big corporations that, look, if you play ball, then I'll make you some deals as well too, but you've got to bring your businesses back to the USA. And we've had this recent meeting with Tim Cook, and now we have this as of May 2nd. Okay, so what does this all have to do with phones and China and Apple and JetBlue? Well, Apple's going around all the world trying to put their operating system. And remember, they only like their operating system. They don't want to work with Android. They don't want to work with anything else. They want to work with Apple. You see what I'm saying? And they want to get on planes. Why would they want to get on planes? They want to be exclusive with everybody. And now all of a sudden, which President Trump's been saying really since he's been running, that we need better trade going on with China. Meets with Tim Cook. And then we have this, all this buyback here, which is fantastic. So what's going on? And what was up with those phones? Are those phones? And what's wrong with those phones? Or is there something right with those phones? Well, I'll tell you what. Let me take you back to just 15 hours ago off the Daily Beast. Pentagon bans sale of Chinese phones on U.S. military bases. The Pentagon is moving to stop the sale of Chinese-made phones from Huawei Technologies Company and ZTE Corporation in and near U.S. military base stores for potential security threats they say the devices could pose. The Wall Street Journal reports officials have said the Chinese government could order Chinese manufacturers to hack into products they make to spy or disable communications, although Huawei and ZTE have said that they would never let that occur. A source told the Journal that the Pentagon is specifically concerned about Beijing tracking U.S. troop whereabouts with the phones. Huawei is the third largest mobile phone maker in the world behind Apple and Samsung. ZTE is the fourth largest seller of phones in the U.S. market. The retail stores affected would be in and around military bases, as well as ones overseas that cater to American soldiers and sailors. Okay, well, these phones. And is it possible that these phones that are made here, where's the picture? Where's the picture? There, where's the picture? That's not the picture. Where's the picture? The Apple Store. You get it. This one right here. Sorry. What was going on with phones being made over here? Or is this just reminding us that they're talking about China in general? Okay, I don't know if it's Hong Kong specifically. But anyway, let me take you back. And hang with me. I promise this is all going somewhere. Or at least we're going nowhere together. I want to take you back to February 15th. Let's try Samsung. Let's try that. There we go. February 15th, Q says, why is Big Pharma essential? Expand your thinking past cures. Think Google. Think new Pixel phone. Think Apple versus Samsung. Why was BlackBerry destroyed? We can guide, but you must organically cover the truth. They are watching, archive everything offline. Okay, well, we were talking about Apple, so let's first talk about Apple. Apple versus Samsung. What was that? That was this right here. This is off of Wikipedia. Apple Incorporated versus Samsung Electronics Company was the first of a series of ongoing lawsuits between Apple Incorporated and Samsung Electronics regarding the design of smartphones and tablet computers. Between them, the companies made more than half of smartphones sold worldwide as of July 2012. In the spring of 2011, Apple began litigating against Samsung in patent infringement suits, while Apple and Motorola Mobility were already engaged in a patent war on several fronts. Okay, I'm just going to keep you with that. Okay, so Apple versus Samsung. They were fighting over patents. Remember that. Think Google, new Pixel phone. Well, the new Pixel phone was fake Face ID. Okay, that was the big thing. And Apple was working on that too with the new iPhone. As a matter of fact, Facebook had it. All these new things were getting this Face ID. Q is saying expand your thinking past cures when they're talking about Big Pharma. Well, why would they say that? What does Big Pharma have to do with these phones? Well, keep in mind, who is Google? Google is Sergey Brin. Who is Sergey Brin's wife? Wojcicki from 23andMe. What is 23andMe? 23andMe is DNA swabbing, which would be a great link between technology and Big Pharma. This is going to prove important. Why was BlackBerry destroyed? Well, I'm going to go off the top of my head. BlackBerry was destroyed for a few reasons. Number one, BlackBerry didn't really keep up with the consumers. Consumers wanted cool little computer phones. They wanted cool things like Apple. They wanted apps. They wanted app stores. They wanted games. They wanted it to be a little computer. BlackBerry wanted to sell to business people. They were really, really reluctant to get rid of the keyboard. They were really reluctant. And the one thing that I think really, really damned them, and of course, maybe this was the point, they wanted their own OS. They didn't want people crossing up with their OS. Now, who bought BlackBerries? Well, statistically, and you could argue with me on this, but I think you'll find they were popular with IT guys. Why would IT guys like BlackBerries? Because their OS was more than likely rather secure. As a matter of fact, if you'll remember, it was the 13 BlackBerries that Hillary had to smash. She had to smash it because they were so secure. She probably had to smash it with a hammer. That's why BlackBerry was destroyed. Apple wants to get their operating software in everything. Google, Gmail. Google is YouTube. You're listening to me on Google right now. You understand where this is all going? This is all data collection. And Apple versus Samsung, if you can remember, that was a patent war. Now that post was from February 15th. Let me enter another keyword here. Now let's look at this. In response to this Anon, who says, just throwing out a little more info, don't even know if it has relevance. Cell phones were originally analog. The switch over to digital was very gradual. Digital signals allow for much greater distance to be covered on much less power. Thus, miniaturization of phones, because of the nature of square digital waves, much more effective at filtering noise and interference. Incidentally, square waves are not healthy for you. They are effective at filtering noise, but not good for you. This inherently means that the phones of today are going to be square wave signals and very low power. If that alone were enough, Q would not exist. They would simply shut him, them, and or us down. So they may act as a trigger, but not enough by themselves to completely program a human. And Parkland would suggest that you really need somebody who is largely predisposed toward moving in the desired direction to begin with. You can't just flip a switch and a born pacifist suddenly becomes Rambo. Talk to me, Johnny. And Q says, what 3 scientists were killed who were researching the SAT relay of mobile phone signal to end users? Was he talking about those 3 scientists that died on the Malaysian air flight. Remember, they were patent holders. This is another post from February 15th, same day as the other post I just read to you. Why was the research deemed classified? Well, who knows? Who knows what this was? Does this have to do with 5G? Does this have to do with some sort of, I don't even want to call it MK Ultra, but something way beyond MK Ultra? Why were these scientists killed? Are you following what I'm saying here? I think you are. All right, now let's take you back to the other one I was just talking about. Why is Big Pharma essential? Well, obviously, Apple was fighting for this patent. They wanted everything. And maybe Samsung did too. I don't know. Google, they're everywhere. And now they were trying to get into China so badly, a place that really, really values their privacy. But they, more important, they really want in value security. And we're talking about BlackBerry that's been destroyed because they had an OS that couldn't really, it was probably well encrypted. That was why all the top Washington officials were using it. Well, why is Big Pharma essential in this? Because, folks, these things emit waves. They emit waves. They emit waves. And people who are maybe predisposed to being suggested can maybe get a frequency blasted into their phone and all of a sudden act. Remember, this guy says, and this is the Anon who says this. Oh, I can't find it now. But they're talking about people, maybe not people like you and I, but do you understand where there are people who are maybe a little bit weak-minded or very easily suggested? Okay? And how would they find out? They would find out through Big Pharma. Remember, 23andMe swabs your DNA so that they can find things that you're predisposed to, so that they can find the right medications for you. And what are we finding in all these school shooters and these so-called, how should I say, these incels, the guys that couldn't get any Chads and Stacys? You remember, most of these guys are hopped up on something that has to do with Big Pharma. Now, let me move on a little bit more here for you. Recently we had this. Am I going too far? Yeah, I am going too far. Excuse me. We had this back in February of 2016. You remember the San Bernardino gunman. I don't want to rehash this story, but remember, they wanted to unlock the phone. Apple didn't want to do it. And then all of a sudden the FBI was kind of like, it's all right. That was under James Comey. What was in that phone that they wanted to see that James Comey didn't want them to see? Then we had this. Remember the man who shot himself in front of the White House? This was from March. Now here's an important thing that people don't mention in this story. And again, it's just kind of, it's sort of swept under the rug. Let me see if I can find it here. Excuse me, bear with me. This is all going somewhere. Oh goodness, I can't find it now. A law enforcement source told CNN the shooter shot his phone before shooting himself. No suicide notes was found, but incoherent sentences were found in a book recovered on the scene. And then if you go down here, law enforcement personnel spent about 4 hours Saturday afternoon searching a maroon Honda Accord with an Alabama license plate parked on the street near Capitol Hill, a few blocks from the White House. After officers blocked off the area, a bomb squad swept the car, and law enforcement personnel removed several items from it, including what looked like pictures and documents from a cigar box before towing the car away. A Secret Service source confirmed to CNN that the victim's car was located in the area where the search of the vehicle took place. Okay, so what was in those documents? Was it something important? Maybe this guy had something. Maybe he just wanted to get to the... He didn't seem to shoot anything towards the White House, but you remember he drove up to it. Maybe he wanted to just throw those documents over the fence. Who knows? But whatever he did, he shot his phone. Why would he shoot his phone? And now we get this story. This is from yesterday. Deadly military plane crash on Savannah, Georgia road. Live updates. An Air National Guard C-130 cargo plane crashed Wednesday onto a busy highway moments after taking off from a Georgia airport, killing 9 National Guard members from Puerto Rico, authorities said. The top official of the Puerto Rico Air National Guard, Adjutant General Isabelo Rivero, confirmed there were no survivors. The plane narrowly missed people on the ground. Okay, so you had this plane go down, and if you saw the video, it's on YouTube, and I don't like to show those kinds of things, but it came down in such a strange way. And why would it come down that way? What was going on that it would just drop like that out of the sky? This pains us, Rivera says of the deaths. They aren't releasing names until all the families have been contacted, but most of them already know and have come to the base. Rivero said in a Wednesday evening press conference that the C-130 has been used in the past to rescue U.S. citizens stranded in the British Virgin Islands following Hurricane Irma and to ferry supplies to the territory of Puerto Rico after Hurricane Maria last year. The huge plane's fuselage appears to have struck the median, and pieces of its 132-foot wingspan were scattered across lanes in both directions. The only part still intact was the tail section, said Chris Hanks, a spokesman for the Savannah Professional Firefighters Association. Wow. Okay, so massive crash, and this thing comes down out of nowhere. And it was a C-130 that was used in Hurricane Irma. Was it this same C-130 right here that President Trump is sitting under? This was during Hurricane Maria, when he went to Puerto Rico. Remember the big old hubbub about supplies being delayed, and it was a big mess, right? Same plane, folks? What do you think? Okay. Now here's where I want to take you. This is off of Google Patents. This is called the PFN/TRAC system, FAA upgrades for accountable remote and robotics control to stop the unauthorized use of aircraft and to improve equipment management and public safety in transportation. This invention, a protected primary focal node, PFN, is a trusted remote activity controller, TRAC, and mobile communication router platform that provides accountable remote and robotics control to transportation vehicles by interfacing with the vehicle's EE systems. It connects each vehicle either on the Earth's surface or near the Earth's surface with application-specific intranets for air, sea, and land travel via either host commercial servers or agency providers through wireless communication gateways, and then further interfaces these vehicles in a larger machine messaging matrix via wireless and IP protocols to further coordinate movement, assess, and manage equipment use and impact on the world's resources, society's infrastructure, and the environment. Okay, well, this is a bunch of fancy talk for the fact that they can remote control these things. Okay, are they sending frequencies into these phones? Remember, I just told you a story about the attack at the White House, and remember, there was the car that jumped out in front of Trump's motorcade. You can search that on YouTube also. What are all these things having to do? Are these things being remotely controlled? Why was Tim Cook meeting with Trump before they're announcing the big buyback here? I keep taking you all the wrong links today. I'm sorry. This one right here. Okay. Tim Cook meets with Trump, and now all of a sudden they got this big buyback. And Trump's talking about bringing things back to China. And now it looks like Q is in China. Let me take you back to the original post. In Hong Kong in particular, and we're looking right here. Are these phones? Are these maybe some phones that President Trump is requesting? Are these secure phones that need to be sent so that Trump's team can use these so that they can communicate with them? Are these phones that are being seized? Don't know. But that's what I have so far for you, folks. I'm sorry, I'm actually probably leaving you with more questions than answers, but at least that can get you started off on something. Incidentally, I wanted to show you another story, and this is regarding Sergey Brin. This is off The Guardian. And let me see if I can find the date on this. I can't find the date, I'm sorry. Google co-founder is building airship designed to be able to deliver supplies and food on humanitarian missions to remote locations, sources said. Google co-founder Sergey Brin is building a high-tech airship in Silicon Valley, destined to be the largest aircraft in the world, according to multiple sources with knowledge of the project. It's going to be massive on a grand scale, said one, adding that the airship is likely to be nearly 200 meters long. This would make it by far the world's largest aircraft today, albeit smaller than the epic Hindenburg Zeppelins of the 1930s or the American Navy airship USS Macon that was once based in the very same hangars where Brin's aircraft is now taking shape. The sources revealed details of the airship on the condition of anonymity, citing confidentiality agreements. Brin has revealed nothing of his airship ambitions and is building the airship in a giant hangar on a NASA airfield far from the eyes of the public. Brin wants the gargantuan airship, funded personally by the billionaire, to be able to deliver supplies and food on humanitarian missions to remote locations. However, it will also serve as a luxurious intercontinental air yacht for Brin's friends and family. So we've got a humanitarian ship, a gargantuan one, that's also a luxurious intercontinental air yacht. Kind of sounds like an Epstein plane, doesn't it? One source put the project's price tag at $100 million to $150 million. Okay. This is this is flying out of Ames Airfield. Interesting stuff, which is incidentally in November 2014, a Google-controlled company called Planetary Ventures signed a $1.1 billion 60-year lease for more than 1,000 acres of the Moffett Field Air Base at Ames, including its three large airship hangars. And incidentally, Moffett Field happens to be just miles from Cupertino. Those are your Q posts. Like I said, folks, sorry, I probably led you into a ton of different ways right there. Those are just some theories that I have, but here's the best way I can sum it up. It looks to me like Apple's has gone knuckles deep in not just China, but a lot of other countries, but particularly China because of the demographic there. And they were making all these bum phones. And of course, they were making a ton of money off of cheap labor, and that's not fair. And, you know, President Trump wants to bring that all back. Could it be that some of the Trump tax plan was a partial way to sort of restructure and make deals with some people who might either be gray hats or at least we have to make deals with? But we had all these insecure phones that were going on. And it seems like it was because this platform was trying to span worldwide to get in all these phones. And everything else was going to get phased out of the way, a la BlackBerry. Okay, and who knows what the picture is? Who knows if we see something or if we're taking something back to the United States? We will see. But I have a feeling that the future will prove past on that. Anyway, I hope this helps. I hope it hasn't confused you anymore. But as always, if you like this video, please click like, share, and subscribe. And if anything pops up, I will be right on top of it. I have a feeling there will be a narrative that will kind of help clue some of this in. So if you think I'm way off, don't kill me on that, because this is still just sort of developing ideas, but hopefully that will set the tone for you. Okay, this is Sir Patrick Mack, and until next time, stay serious. No, I'm just kidding.